Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Austin Page. Austin, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Thomas.
Very much my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
For sure. Well, my name is Austin Page. I am from Richmond, Virginia, and I have been a coach or online coach for over a decade now, helping people get aligned with who they want to be and putting together actionable steps, daily processes to build that path to get to where they want to go. And it's all through experience of building my own journey to build a person that I would admire. And now I'm able to give that person to others and help them create that.
Thank you for the introduction. I did have an idea of where I wanted the episode to go, but based on what you just said, it is something that I don't know if I've struggled with it, but I've given it a lot of thought in terms of what kind of person do you want to be. So if you do if you do have some conflict around that or maybe struggling with it, what advice would you give someone?
Yeah. Most things that I talk about, or that at least I work with my clients through, are just personal things that I've gone through. I don't really try and explain or not explain. I don't really dive into stuff that I haven't really done myself or have some type of experience with. Uh, I'm a simpleton, so I just know what I've been through, and I know what's worked for me or continues to work for me. So I try and just explain that and relay it to others. So I grew up like a typical younger guy. I didn't know who I was, who I wanted to be, and some days I'm still wondering that. But at least I'm chipping away on a path that at least feels or talks to me through my conscience. And for a long time, I was chasing the crowd, following the mob, and wanting to be, I guess, accepted or be a guy that everyone liked. So I was big into partying and finding the next party throughout high school and into college. And that was getting me nowhere quick. I was always getting in trouble, getting locked up, uh, not really ever building myself through these things. I was pretty much losing happiness in the same place I was looking for it, right? And uh, that led to me getting in a real bad car accident. I was drunk driving. I don't remember the night, but I do remember the earlier parts of the night, but I don't remember the wreck. So I ended up wanting to leave this party that I was at and got in my car supposedly and went home. And like a typical story that you might hear of drunk driving is I made it about a mile. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but about a mile away from the house to where I ran off the road and wrecked. Didn't hurt anybody, only injured myself, fortunately. But uh, from there, I was sent to a hospital where I stayed there in a trauma center for about 6 weeks. Um, and from there, I was moved from the hospital to what's called a rehabilitation center, to where I had to learn how to walk again and do many just daily living things that we all just take for granted and just forget about. And that's where sort of the shift began to happen of seeing a daily process. And I'm going to break it down real quick. Is every morning in that rehab center, we had physical therapists that would come in, at least into my room, and they would say, "Hey, this is before I was able to walk. I was still bed bound. Both my legs were in casts, straight casts, because I had broken both my legs from this wreck. I had ruptured my intestines during this wreck. So I have a zipper cut from my chest down to my, I guess, pubic area. And so I wasn't doing a whole lot of much. And every morning, the physical therapist would come into my room and say, "Hey, hop your ass over into the wheelchair and roll on down to the gym." And they had a small gym in this rehab center. And in there, the physical therapist would get me to lock my wheelchair in place, and they'd give me some weights. I'd start doing some curls, some shoulder raises, get into parallel bars and do dips. And it became a habit because every morning they'd come down and wake me up and say, "Hey, time to get after it." And without that nudge at first, I probably wouldn't have pushed myself like that. But every day of doing that routine, going to the gym, then eating afterwards, taking care of myself, starting to learn how to just get back into daily life. It created a habit of me building myself, and I noticed how good it made me feel. And shortly after leaving that rehab center from where I lived for 2 months, I went back home, and my first job outside of that was getting a job at a local gym because I realized that I liked fitness. I liked building myself, and I was like, you know what? It's time for maybe a change. I can get a job at a gym, and it's going to come with a free membership. So I got a front desk job there, and learned my way through it. And over time, to speed this story up, learned a lot through the people that I met there and realized that something I wanted to pursue, building myself and helping build others. But I guess to answer your question is that flip came from me not liking the way I was, me not liking the person I was, me not liking the results that I was accepting and the things that I was accepting with my life, and looking around at people that I admired and wondering how they were doing it. Like, man, do they just show up like that? Do they have something I don't? No, it's just mainly the difference is people have, whether they realize it or not, they have a brand book, a personal rule book for themselves of like, hey, this is who do I want to be? Let's write that out, or at least think about it. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up like? What do I want to look like? What do I don't, how do I want to feel? And then start to put together a brand book. Like, I'm not sure what brands are big over in the UK, but over here there's a big staple brand of motorcycles called Harley Davidsons. And that brand, when you see that brand, you know exactly what they're about, what they do, what they stand for, and what they don't do, and what they don't stand for, probably. And having a personal brand book, it doesn't have to be that strict, but somewhat along that lines will help keep you aligned and at least give you a path to follow to build that person, that future self, that 2.0 self you want to be. And you have to break it down into bite-sized chunks, which is day by day, one day at a time.
Can you give me an example of what your brand book is? Because I can guess based on what your story is, but it would be good to have an example.
So or for me, it's definitely not as strict as, like I mentioned, with that particular brand of motorcycles. But for me, it is what things that I allow into my body. So controlling the things I can control. It's part of my I guess personal brand or rule book. What are those things that we kind of can all control? We can control what we allow into our body. We can control what we drink. We can control what we react to, and we can control people we listen to and people we hang around. And that last one's a big influence as well, because if you don't know who you are, you're only going to follow or get led by the people that you're around. You're the makeup of the sum of the people that you hang out with for the most part, especially if you don't know who you are. Having a set, actionable plan each day, a daily process for me to follow that builds me, builds my confidence, builds my self-worth, because our self-worth is developed through our self-work. And confidence is built through execution, following through on the things that you say you're going to do. You can look in the mirror all day, and if you aren't executing or at least taking action steps forward, you won't believe yourself at all. You won't feel great about yourself. You can say, "Oh, I'm confident," but unless you're taking the action, you probably won't feel that confident. So having it, for me, it's controlling the things I can control, not focusing or getting worried or anxiety about the things that truly aren't outside of my control. And that's where the reaction comes in. It's like, all right, let me take a step back. Let me breathe. Can I control that? Is that person's actions really going to affect and make me lose my day? Some days it happens, but for the most part, I try and keep blinders on and say, hey, all right, let me breathe. What can I control in this moment? I can control what I do with today, the actions that I take, the exercises that I do, the way I move my body, and what I allow into my body. I keep it pretty simple. So those things of what I allow into my body, what I do with my body, and who I listen to or hang around.
Thank you for that. When you started off talking about your story, you mentioned the fact that when you were younger, you wanted to be accepted by others. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of young people feel that way. So if you could speak to someone who was like that, you have the opportunity to speak to someone now, what do you say to them in regards to that problem?
It's not as big as I thought, being accepted or being the cool guy or being the party guy. Because I hosted a ton of parties. I wanted to be the guy, right? And because I think one thing I didn't mention is growing up through middle school. I don't know how school is set up over there, but we have elementary school, middle school, and high school. And throughout middle school and most of my high school years, which is 4 to 6 years worth of my schooling, I was in private school. So I didn't have many people around me. It was as a whole school of composed of maybe 30 people. So for those years, I didn't really get to have a ton of friends or a lot to do or extracurricular events. So once I got into public school for my last 2 years of high school before I graduated, uh, once I got into that, the school was much bigger, a couple hundred people in my class. And I was like, man, I want to get known, and so that amplified probably my path or journey. But looking back or talking to somebody that's maybe back at where I was and hearing what I needed to hear is it's not as big as you think. And it's going to take time. Honestly, it's everybody's time frame might be different, but for me, it took time to realize that all that shit didn't matter. What mattered is what makes me feel good and doing things that develop my self-worth, like my process or actions that I can take make me feel good. Following through on my word makes me feel good. Am I perfect? No, I'm human just like everybody else. But uh, looking for outside, I guess I'm at lost for words on the outside
Like
acceptance.
external
Yeah,
gratification.
that's it. Yeah, it holds no weight. It's fake. It's nothing. It's a flash in the pan. It comes and goes as quick. It comes in fast, goes out fast. It doesn't develop true, I guess, self love.
Okay. Appreciate that. The next part of your story, you talked about the drink driving and your accident. Um, I kind of feel like it's important to, what should we say, if anyone is in that moment where they're kind of like 50-50, a message from you in terms of whether they should or shouldn't do that might be quite powerful. So, what's your position on the concept of drink driving now that you have the experience of it?
Oh, please learn through my dumbass mistakes. I was always young and dumb, and it's you know everybody thinks, especially guys, younger men or males, they're going to think they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Nothing bad will ever happen to me, and that's the way I thought. Oh, I wouldn't be dumb enough to run off the road. I'm not that dumb. I wouldn't hurt myself intentionally, right? I'm not. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. And once you start to drink and get that, I guess, drunk or belligerent, blacked out like I was, because I don't really remember the rest of the night of me getting in the car. It's far too long or far too past, really decision making. It's just hopefully you have somebody around you that cares about you to take the keys or tell you not to get in the car. But realizing that you aren't bulletproof, you aren't 10 foot tall, and life happens. Life throws punches, and it's not doesn't really give mercy. So if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough, and it's not worth it. And thinking about alcohol or drugs in general or anything like that, not that I still don't indulge here or there with not with drugs, but with a drink, some wine, or a beer here or there. Uh, think of the last time anything positive came from drinking. Like name anybody that's listening. When's the last time? Like, oh man, I'm so glad I drank. That great opportunity happened, or that great thing happened to me. Everything negative that's happened to me in my life, for the most part, typically revolved around alcohol.
I'm sure there are a few people who have been created as a result of alcohol, but I take
Yeah,
your
for
point for
sure.
the most part.
But let's talk like the main regular person. Unless you're creating like a beer brand or a company, or something. Yeah, I mean, I guess with social media, things can take off, but for the most part, it's not it's not something that's going to support or fuel your progress. It's typically takes away. It's
I agree.
sabotaging.
The next part in your story is kind of the after of the crash, and you're essentially in hospital. I tend to be an optimist, but I can sort of almost sympathize with if you had kind of a poor me mentality in that particular scenario, because I saw the pictures. The pictures are pretty bad. What was your emotional state during that process?
At first, I had many emotions, almost like daily. The first couple of weeks, unfortunately, I was very doped up. They had me on a lot of morphine and painkillers and things that sort of kept me sedated. So when I did wake up and realize what was going on, it almost felt like a dream or like a twilight zone, that it wasn't real. Looking down and seeing that gaping hole in my stomach, I didn't think that was real at the moment. Seeing my legs wrapped up and cast straight out while I was laying in the bed, I didn't think that was real. And they, family that was around me kept telling me I was in a wreck. I was in a wreck, but I just thought it was like one of those dreams where you kind of wake up, And you're like unsure if it's still real, but you just go back to sleep type of deal. And finally, I got to a point where I was coherent enough and realizing that, damn, this happened. And I was unsure of the outcome. And so were the doctors. There was moments in time where my white blood cell count was so high that they were unsure over the next couple of days if infection wouldn't take over and end it all. They brought in a chaplain to see my family to talk about things like that. I mean, things weren't looking good for a few days. And then finally, things broke in a good way. And I started to recover and infection started to go down. And after that, things got a little bit more at ease mentally, realizing that if I just take it one day at a time, which sucked then because I was a prisoner of the bed. You know, I couldn't get up, I couldn't move. So I was at mercy to anybody that came in and helped me. Going to the bathroom, anything like that, it was all in the bed. It was a journey and something that will wake you up quick when how real it is. But I realized that it was on me. It took me a while to realize that, but I realized it was on me to build myself back up, to build the life that I want. And it was my decisions that got me into that bed too, right? Like we aren't, to a certain extent, most people, we aren't victims of our circumstances. We're all victims of our decisions, good or bad.
And I wanted to ask you about that because that's very, I would say positive mindset or growth mindset, if you would label it that way. But I was wondering whether it was a result of the working out or because of the time you had to think. How much was it to do with like the physical activity versus the adversity that you're facing?
So before the wreck, I wasn't working out at all. But during that recovery time, I think it was a multitude of things, man. I truly think the working out, and there's a correlation with, you know, physical and mental discipline of working out, building yourself. And you don't have to be a bodybuilder. I'm not talking like that. I'm saying just the fact of strengthening your body, strengthening your mind. Even though how little I was doing it in that time in that rehab center, it was building confidence in myself. That those daily actions of me going down there, getting a little bit stronger, feeling that much better about my strength, my overall balance, seeing how things were improving almost day by day. It was adding, think of like a video game character. It was adding points to my character daily, every time I was going and doing that, especially in the days when I didn't fucking feel like it. Like dragging my legs off the bed to hop in that wheelchair and roll down there. And I'm achy, I'm in pain still. The last thing I feel like doing. But after I would do it, I'd be like, dang, okay, I'm on to something. I just made a deposit right there. I can't imagine what next week's going to look like. I might be walking by next week. We'll see. So more so, I think it was the daily. I keep mentioning it's a daily process, but the daily uh, character building actions or things that I was doing was was sharpening the person that not probably that I am today. You know, all those experiences and that journey as like a knife striking a sharpener, one strike at a time, one day at a time. It's gotten sharper and sharper, sharper, sharper. And you can think of that when you're doing actions that are pulling away from you. Like not to say, again, I'm not trying to tell anybody to be sober or anything like that, but every time you skip something you say you're going to do, or cut corners over there, or not do what you said you were going to do, or follow through on that, you're deducting points of confidence uh, and grit from your character. So if you can think of it that way, if the more days you can compound and make deposits into yourself, whatever that may be, whether it's reading a book or learning something new, a new hobby, or training your body, you can really compound and build internal belief, confidence in yourself to really make it to tomorrow. That's the goal. Let me do what I can today, because the two worthless days of the year are yesterday and tomorrow. Because we can't change yesterday. I can't change that I drunk drove, and I can't do anything about tomorrow unless I focus on today or win today.
Great answer. I don't know why this comes to me, but I'm just interested. Did you take the everyday working out into your life now, or do you take some rest days sometimes?
Uh, it's still about that. It's well, actually, currently, I'm still dealing with the wreck to this day. The wreck happened in 2010. I've had multiple surgeries over the years to repair some things that just were a part of the process. After 2010, the doctors that originally worked on me said, "Hey, you're probably going to have to come back in a couple of years from now after things settle. We'll have to redo some things. We just put you back together just to get you back into life." So in 2010, the wreck happened. 2013, I had another abdominal surgery where they cut me open from chest to pubic area again, replaced mesh. And then just this past month, September 17th, I had another abdominal surgery to replace mesh that I had blown out from the years of just normal life and lifting and whatnot. And I haven't been working out the past 2-ish weeks, but outside of that, I work out almost every single day. And I'm not saying I'm beating my body into the ground, but I'm doing something, some type of exercise to not break character. That's pretty much it. To stay aligned and follow through in a process of building. Not to say a rest day takes away from you. Take it if you need it, for sure. Like if you feel like you got hit by a truck, but the way I sort of plan my days or build structure around my days is some type of movement, whether it's a walk, a run, weight training, yoga, whatever. But I do try and stay active or exercise daily.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of what you've said so far probably covers this, but you've mentioned living a life by example. So if you were to summarize what that means, other than
Yeah.
perhaps what you've already outlined, what would you add?
Yeah. So hypothetical is hypocritical. There's a lot of people that bosses, leaders that tell you what to do, but they don't show you what to do. And especially when it came to coaching. I was working when I first got into coaching, a lot of people that I worked around, other colleagues, they were, book, they passed the books, but were they living it? Were they showing it? And that's the only way to lead. Yeah, we're only as good as the example we set, right? So I can talk all day, say, "Hey, do this, do this, do that." But if I haven't done it myself, or if I'm not doing it myself, then what weight does it have on you to probably take action? I'd be hypocritical. So that's what I sort of mean by living by example. And not that again, I'm not perfect, but every day I try and put together some type of process that would be the person that I needed to see or watch, that would give me the nudge. That would be like, damn, I was thinking about skipping the day, but just saw Austin go hit his workout, just saw Austin make that meal, just saw Austin follow through. Let me get my shit together. Let me get my fat ass up off the couch. Let me go do that. I was planning on, yeah, whatever mood. And it haven't always been like that. It's taken reps, daily reps, years, over a decade to get to this point to where I'm able to build a day and be as consistent or as disciplined as I am. But I still have off days. I'm human. I bleed red just like everybody else. So I still have days where I have to just like sit there and stare at the wall for 30 minutes before I get my ass up and do something, whether it is a workout, whether it is send that email, whether it is call that person that I needed to call. I still have those moments too. But what gives me pressure now is realizing that there's whether it's manic or not, I put something on my shoulder that, hey, somebody's watching. Who's watching?
Well, looking at where you were before, and where you are now, at least my perception anyway, is you've done an amazing job. So congratulations.
Thank
The
you, man.
question is, what are you working towards? What are your goals? Where do you see yourself?
So I have been coaching for over a decade. And with that, over the past maybe 8 months, I slowly transitioned into online coaching because I was doing a lot of in-person coaching over the past 10 years. I have my own private gym here that I'm in now, but and I would just train people in person. But realizing that I can only spread myself so thin throughout the days with so many hours on a day, to be able to reach more people, help more people, I needed to be able to diversify and build an online presence. And now I work with clients online and been focusing on building that. So that's the more short-term goal, is to continue to reach people, help people, and lead the way through my online coaching app. Outside of that, I would love to. Another goal of mine is the funds and stuff that I am making through helping people. I have been putting back into real estate, so I've been trying to. That's something that I've always had interest in. So it's something that I do now with rental properties, particularly short-term rentals, so Airbnbs, if that's a thing. I'm not sure if that's a thing over there, but where you have a house, you short-term rent it out.
Cool. I like it. You mentioned your coaching. Uh, some of the things that I think you cover are around limiting beliefs. And we
Yes.
talked about doing the everyday thing. And sometimes there's that little voice in your head which is telling you either you can't do it or you shouldn't do it, take the easy way out. How do you deal with that voice?
So the way you're able to squish, there's there's a thing that I heard from a mentor of mine that he explained. It's called the boss voice versus the bitch voice. We all have it. Sometimes more people than so listen to the bitch voice or the bad voice more than the boss voice. And it knows the bitch voice knows exactly what you want to hear. We all have it up here. It's our subconscious. It knows exactly what to tell you that you'll buy hook, line, and sinker every time. It's like, oh, I've got that going on. Oh, I've had a long day. Oh, so and so pissed me off. So I'm just gonna say I'll try again tomorrow. And sometimes you buy it, or most of the time, a lot of people do, and including myself. Your brain tells you exactly what you want to hear all the time. But then there's the boss voice. The boss voice, the one that knows that, hey, we're thinking long term. We know exactly where we want to go. Let's uh, build that boss voice by following through on these little daily actionable things that I keep mentioning and keep beating down. Is you build confidence and break self-limiting belief with the small details, the small things, the little grains of sand that you put on the scale, that little detail that you didn't think was big, the 1% decisions, those little one percenters, they add up. Just like pennies make a dollar. I don't know what would be equivalent over there, but those little grains of sand, you put more and more on that scale, it's going to get heavier and heavier. The pile's going to get bigger and bigger. And that proof of confidence, or that proof, actionable proof, is going to grow. And that breaks that self-limiting belief. And you got to start with it small. It doesn't have to be like me, gung ho, every day working out. We're crushing. Our foods are 100% controlled. And again, I'm not 100%, but you know what I'm saying. Breaking that self-limiting belief and the can'ts and the can do's starts with little actionable goals that you give yourself daily, because it's earned daily. The moment you begin to lax off, or you give yourself a break here or there, your conscience starts to feel that sort of creep back in of like, oh shit, I'm not feeling that great. And if you can have actionable goals, no matter how big or small, those things make a deposit into your confidence, which is your belief, right? Belief in yourself. And again, from the looks, face value, you're like, oh, he's talking about the gym every single day. No, it's just following through on your own word. When you said you were going to do that little thing, send that email, make that phone call, go for that walk, um, whatever, you followed through on it.
Yeah, I like the little wins or the chunking method. Like
Yes.
especially how it relates to the gym is like you were talking about getting off the couch, right? Well, you may not want to go to the gym, but you can go and get in your car, and you may not want to, do your workout, but you can drive to the gym, right?
Yep.
And you can get there and you can go on the first machine, and before you know it, you've already completed your workout. So I really
Yeah.
like that approach. Um, for people who are interested in the coaching, or perhaps they want to get in touch or follow you, where do they go?
So I am very active on my Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram at a page man, you can always follow. I try and post daily on throughout my stories and even my profile, showing things that work for me and my clients, and giving out just little behind the scenes of what I do to continue to build that confidence or keep that momentum going within my own progress in life. But for coaching and whatnot, you can visit my website, www.gymflocoaching.com. And you can sign up for coaching, check out some of my online programs, and see some other client testimonials on there as well.
So if you're not feeling like you have much of a boss voice, your Instagram is there as a substitute. Is that right?
It definitely is. I use it as many clients. I have group calls with my clients weekly, and many of them say, and that's why I have mentioned it on here, is they say, "Oh, damn, I saw Austin go get his shit done. There's plenty of time left in the day. The sun's still up. Let me go do something real quick. Or damn, Austin followed through on that. Let me do that. It does lead, and you don't have to be me. There's people watching you. There's people watching people that listen to this. There's people around them, family, friends that are watching them. The question you need to ask is, are the decisions and actions I'm taking today, is that inspiring somebody, or is that giving a bad example to somebody? Like, if you don't have enough uh, fire or to like drive behind yourself to like start taking action, think about maybe your kids, your wife, your friends around you, your family. What type of example are you inspiring them to be better, or are you pulling them back?
Well, I think you've been very inspirational today, and I meant it when I said congratulations on where you were versus where you are. I think you are an
Thank you, man.
example for people to follow. So well done. And do you have any closing thoughts for the episode today?
Yes, and I mentioned it already, but I big believer in it. And it's if it's something you can ask yourself often before you make or take a decision, realizing that you are only as good as the example you set. Not what you say, it's what you do.
Love it. Austin, thank you very much for being a great guest today.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you, man.